as you know, it's called The Revolution of Evelyn Serrano, and it takes place in 1969 in a Puerto Rican neighborhood in New York City, also known as El Barrio. Now, in 1969, things were very exciting in America. The youth had risen and they were going to take over the world, and they were anti-establishment, and they decided to take over their universities, and they didn't like the way their colleges were run, so they took over their colleges, and kids protested the war in Vietnam, as you know, and the civil rights movement was fervent, and it was a whole cultural awakening, I think, at that time. Women were just joining the workforce for the first time, and they indicated their displeasure with society by burning their bras. I don't know if anybody was aware of that. If we did that now, we'd have to burn our Spankses, and I don't know that Spankses burn. I think we'd have to melt them now, but everybody was standing up for their rights and protesting, and even President Johnson at that time sort of said, okay, I give up. Let's have a new society, and he promulgated the Great Society, and it was the beginning of Head Start. Well, while all of this stuff was going on in the big arena, in this little community of El Barrio, in Spanish Harlem, a group called the Young Lords took over a church in order to bring attention to the fact that social services were not happening in that community. There was a lot of garbage in the street, and they wanted the garbage to be picked up. They were very idealistic, and they decided that they too were going to make a stamp. They were going to say something about society. And it was the first time that Puerto Ricans kind of came out of the margins of society. They wanted to stand up and be counted. And the young people were very idealistic. And it's interesting to me that they went around the community. They said, well, what should we do? What should we do? Should we free Puerto Rico from the United States? And the people of the neighborhood said, no, I think it would be good if they cleaned up the garbage around here. That was more important. So then they had something called the garbage offensive. They set the garbage on fire so that the sanitation department would come and clean up the streets. And then they took over a church. And all of those things happened, and if you want to know more about those things, in the back of the book, those events, in the back of the book, there's a list of all of the newspaper articles and how the New York Times covered it. Those things happened for real. But my book is a made-up story about how these events could have affected the lives of a young girl, a 14-year-old girl, Evelyn Serrano, her grandmother, and her mother. Her mother is very traditional, very afraid of the Young Lords, very afraid of change. The grandmother, however, is a fervent revolutionary person. She's a Puerto Rican nationalist and gets swept up in the fervor of the Young Lords, takes Evelyn Serrano with her, and Evelyn Serrano is caught in the middle, if she should side with her mother or if she should side with her grandmother. And she doesn't know what to do. And therein lies the drama and the rub.